All right, Minding Your Business community. Thank you so much. Episode number 199 of the Minding Your Business podcast, entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. Shout out to my guy, Zach Hull, that's there. He's actually in the Denver, Colorado area, was promoting one of our t-shirts on this week. We definitely appreciate him doing that. And he actually wore it to the corporate meeting. They have their monthly meeting, and Zach wore one of our shirts to the meeting. I hope it fit dress code and it didn't create any issues. But shout out to Zach and thank him so much for doing that. Subscribe to the podcast, 5 star, wherever you get your pods, and certainly on Apple Podcasts. Helps us to extend the Minding Your Business community and continue to grow this particular audience. Listen, I'm excited to have some fun today. We have a really fun guest that's joining us. Martha Weidmann is joining us here. She is the co-founder of 9.arts. 9.arts, that's 9.arts.com. She's the CEO and she's the co-founder of just a tremendous company there in the Denver, Colorado area. And, just really looking forward to this, we always like to bring you guys, great minds, and hopefully that you've enjoyed this now over close to 200 episodes now here of the Minding Your Business podcast since 2017. And Martha's no different. Just a lot of fun, great business mind, and really doing some great things, and have endured a lot in growing her company here over the last several years. And so she's taking time out today on a Friday, no doubt that we're recording this. But Martha, thank you so much for joining here on the Minding Your Business podcast. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Ron. Happy to be here. And I think I need to find where I can get one of those t-shirts and wear one of my next meetings too.
yeah. I need to make sure. I need to get your size so I can send you one. Because Zach was. I mean, he kind of scared me a little bit. He was really excited about wearing that shirt in their meeting, which obviously greatly appreciated. But it was a lot of fun seeing some hilarious pictures.
Well, I'm a fan of what you're doing, and I love the idea of supporting businesses and entrepreneurs at this stage where, you're kind of past that initial startup and you're really looking at how you can figure out how to take your business to the next level. That's always such a question for all of us when we're in that stage of business. So I love that there's an outlet for that here.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate those kind words, Martha. And that's what I try to do, and what we try to do here with the Mind Your Business community is, once you kind of have that idea of, it's solid, it's, you vetted it enough to say, okay, it has viability, right? Then what? And you start doing some things, and then, what takes it from, kind of quasi hobby to, where it's actually, a business, right? And you can develop a process and maybe automate some pieces of it so that you can have the business help really supplement your lifestyle. And that's really what we look for here. So I definitely appreciate those kind words. And let's learn a little bit about that for you, for yourself. When I initially went to your website, and we talked a little bit about this offline, you have one of the best websites that I've seen. Really no cap on that at all. 9.arts is really tremendous. And so MYB, you should go there, 9.arts.com. When you get done listening to the podcast, make sure you go there and interact with Martha and her team there. But, just tremendous. It's very clear, able to really see what you guys do. And so that really had me excited to talk to you today. And I'd love to hear and kind of start out. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got your start, Martha, and kind of your pathway to where you are today.
Well, the pathway, I think, for many entrepreneurs is nonlinear. But I will say that in terms of how I got to where I am today, I'm gonna take it back actually a little bit and tell you my origin story, because
Please.
I think that kind of gives a little bit of perspective on who I am and how I got to be in this position. So I was I was conceived in Mississippi in the early 1980s. My parents met when they were in college. And so my mom was one of the first in her family to go to college. She worked her way through college, through school to pay her tuition, worked at the Piggly Wiggly. And my dad came from a family that was a lineage of doctors. My grandfather is a really prominent surgeon. And as part of the requirements to become a physician, you have to take a Latin course. My mother was really interested in foreign language and just understanding the greater world. And so she signed up to take Latin course because that was her major, was in international languages. So my parents met in Latin class. And, I imagine like them looking at each other and sparks fly. And anyway, there I come along 9 months later.
Right.
So I was born when my parents were really young, and it allowed me to watch them grow as a family, like watch them develop. And I knew them when they were 20 years old. And so it
Wow.
was really interesting to like watch my parents grow and develop, and then also to have this family dynamic where half of my family was the line was like Mississippi farmers. And so they were just salt of the earth people. They solved their own problems. They were mechanics. They built their own things, like fixed their own things, and, farmed. And, we would be like shucking corn and peas on the weekends in a big living room group full of people. So there's that side of the family. And then the other side of the family, which was more blue blood, collected antiques and art. And so what I learned from those dynamics, like I just kind of learned how to fit in to different social situations, like navigate all these different social situations and learn how to feel totally comfortable being around people who were like maybe more powerful or, financially important, but then also on the flip side, like learned how to actually get my hands dirty, build stuff, shuck the corn. And, my grandma was always saying, you are never better than anyone else. So you always remember that, you got to earn your way too. And so I think having that background of just these two different like socioeconomic perspectives has really given me this great tool in the world to understand like what our clients are looking for on the financial side and how they're looking for an ROI and an impact and an investment in their real estate and their properties. And then on the artist side, how do you find appreciation for the things that you make with your own hands? You want someone to see that and recognize what you're doing and just appreciate the fact that you're putting yourself out there. So I feel like that kind of background, being a social navigator, has really helped to form who I am today. And then in terms of just professional career and business side, I started at a very young age, just trying out any job I could get. And I went through my career as like a process of elimination.
Okay.
So I thought, all right, I'm going to just try a whole bunch of different types of work. And I don't think this wasn't like strategically my decision. I was just trying to figure out how I could earn money.
Yeah.
But I ended up taking on so many different types of jobs and so many different types of work that eventually, by the time I was in my mid 20s, I had done everything from, worked on a trout farm to being a surgical prep assistant to being a photojournalist. And then at that point, it was a good time for me to step back and ask myself, what can I be where I'm going to be the best in the world at what I do and make a difference for people? So how can I be the best in the world? Like, what is it that I am better at, where I bring the highest and best use and value of my time to the world around me? And so that experience of all these different types of experiments and work up to that point, I think kind of led me to, in my mid 20s, knowing that a career in the arts was where I could really bring the most value to the world. And the way that we got to founding 9 Arts was really through a process of working in the industry, learning all the players, being part of a really great legacy company that went through an incredibly difficult transition pre-recession, could not pull it out during that last recession in 08-09, and saving that company, saving the remnants of that company through, a bankruptcy process, and then rising with 9DAT as kind of the phoenix from the ashes. So, we went through a lot in the last recession, learned a lot by getting our hands dirty in our 20s. My partner and I working for the previous company in art consulting. So I think some of the best things that we've done are, experiment, reflect, evaluate, and always try, right? Like no one's going to give it to you. You just got to put yourself out there. So, well, that was kind of a roundabout way, but
no, I loved it.
That's how we got here.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of how you got here, Martha, you're the first guest that I've ever had that took their story all the way back to conception.
I'm talking about the before times. Before
you talked really
existed.
before time. I thought you were going to go that you go all the way back to, hey, before I was conceived, I was racing a bunch of guys to this egg, and I was first. I won.
Well, you know what? I sure did.
Yeah. Right. Yep. So I always say that because we're all winners, right? Just for being here, right? We won our very first race. No,
so true.
Yeah, something else that you said too, with your humble beginnings, with your family there and your parents being young there in Mississippi, which is known to be a state of many humble beginnings, for many, and how that I loved your balance that mirrors a lot of my background in having exposure to various social, economic, and various ways of viewing the world can help shape you with balance, right? And so that's something else that I took is your understanding of values and values on kind of both sides of, if you want to call that the tracks or whatever that is, Martha. So understanding the values of both sides and then being able to connect those together. And it suits you very well that you found the arts, because in the arts, there's a lot of connectivity between, very, kind of hetero type of ideas and ways to see the world. One of the things that's not really associated with the arts is kind of this homogenous, one size fits all, right? Arts encompasses creativity, encompasses vision. And I think that fits you very well as you've had this more structured side of your life and coming, kind of through, school and into business and that sort of thing. And I think that bodes well. And then when you mentioned going through the last recession there in 08-09, I think for you and your partner, helping you go through that is your ability to be creative. And if you think back to those times, it was very difficult for business leaders to be creative and pivot. They're learning it much better now, right? Mm-hmm. After having been through that 10 years ago. But I imagine at that time, you all with your youth, and then also, that creative, mindset, that no excuses mindset, but your ability to quickly pivot. You mentioned, 9DAT Arts being the phoenix that rose from the ashes. I love that, connection that you made, because it's fitting that you're able to, creatively move and again, pivot through, those obstacles that you faced, during that time where many couldn't. Many, unfortunately, sometimes gets very, tunnel vision and get stuck in, this is who we are and this is who we'll always be. And, a lot of people didn't make it through the recession sometimes with that type of mindset. And so, Martha, I wanted to ask you, what really allowed you guys to get through that recession? Because I'm curious, and kind of leading this to where you are with your current business, what were some things that you and your partner specifically did? I remember going through that. I was a banker, and I remember, talking to many companies that, some did well, some really bit the dust. But I think there's something innate with leaders that were able to get through that. What was that for you guys?
Well, I'm going to touch on a few things. So one thing that you alluded to is creativity. And I think that's really important. We take that now as artists, we sometimes take for granted what creativity means and why it's so important, because it that's the part that comes naturally. Now,
Yeah.
I had to learn all the accounting terminology. I had to learn finance just by trial and error and reading a bunch of books.
Yeah.
But the creative side came really naturally and easily for us, because that part of our brain as artists, it's like a muscle, and the more you exercise it, the sharper it becomes, the stronger it becomes. And I think right now, one of the things that can happen, especially in any type of recession, is stress. And
Mm.
stress can really kind of cut off your creative juices. So making sure that you take time to take breaks, step away from your business, step away from your work,
Yes.
and you know that in the back of your mind, you're going to be running through those ideas, like when you sleep, when you brush your teeth, when you're having a meal with your family. So give yourself permission to step away, because you can actually be more creative by giving yourself that kind of space. So you got to
Yeah.
think through things. So I say right now, I love to use the quote from one artist that I follow. Her name is Mathoni. She's based in Nairobi, and she's got a whole series of songs right now about creativity as an essential business. And I
Mm.
love that series, because being imaginative is essential, not only to us as business owners, but to our culture overall. We have to imagine what this world is going to look like when we all come out together. We have
Mm.
to visualize hope. We have to visualize what this world is going to be, and the things that bring us joy and inspiration, because that's
Mm.
what's going to bring us out of this stronger.
Yeah.
So creativity as an essential business, creativity is essential, I think, is number one. And giving
Yeah.
yourself the space to step back and think through things is really important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then the second thing that I would emphasize is mentorship. Just having someone around you, like someone in your life that has been through a really challenging situation in business.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be someone from your industry. My father-in-law was my mentor through the last recession, and
Yeah.
he ran a commercial or a construction company in Atlanta. And
Okay.
he was my coach and mentor through all of those things, because there are many parts of business that translate across industries, right?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
finding your inspiration, finding your mentor who can help you see the bigger picture, give you
Mm.
perspective on what's happening. Um, for us, that was really important during that last recession, was to have a mentor to guide you through it,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And then coming out of it, I think diversification, having a focused area of diversification, has enabled us to grow the way that we've grown, and also mitigate risk on any sort of downside. So I can talk a little bit more about that if you like, but
Yeah.
that focused diversification, I think, is incredibly important for any business.
Yeah, absolutely. And Martha, you one thing I take from that is I notice how all those interconnect. You talked about creativity, you talked about mentorship, and then you talk about diversification. All areas MYB that are uber critical to, again, taking your business from where it is today to that next step, right? Martha talked about the overall creativity that's kind of been the theme of our conversation. And then you talk about mentorship. And I just did an interview for Independent Banker this week, Martha, where I shared my story, and my story is rooted in mentorship of from people that look like me and where I'm from, and then people who aren't, right? Who took stock in a kid that's from right here here in Memphis, Tennessee, originally by Chicago, Illinois, but Memphis, Tennessee, and took stock and took a chance on a kid And that made all the difference. And so when you talk about mentorship, and even as you become an adult in the business, your willingness and enough humility and curiosity in your creativity to be open to feedback. Some you may like to hear, some you may not, but great feedback that, again, you can go and implement that can help you be that much better and maybe avoid some pitfalls that you may actually catch, but then a mentor can help you get through that. And then diversification, again, your ability to pivot and not, have all your eggs in one basket and not get stuck on, kind of one idea or kind of one way of doing things. And I think, again, that I see that in you, that balance of, that, when you talk about accounting and finance and having to learn all those pieces of the business is very important. But another great piece is that diversification, to be able to, again, to augment what you're doing, look at it critically, and then be open to new ideas, vetting those out, and then being decisive on, moving forward. And I think those are things like you described, Martha, that helped you and your team, transition. And now you've got, obviously your business that's thriving today. And so, I want to ask you, let's connect all these to, business today. So tell us about Non.Arts. For those that, aren't familiar with Non.Arts, what is it, and who do you work with? Tell us about, kind of at a high level, the business.
Yeah, so Arts is a consulting and curating company that creates art experiences that tell brand narratives for companies. So our primary clients are developers, large scale neighborhood master plan projects. We might work for hospitality. We might work even for city governments to help them develop a public art master plan. And even down to a specific company that says, you know what, we're setting up our expanded headquarters here in Memphis, Tennessee, and we want to show our support for the local community. We want to show that we're a creative, innovative company, and we want to put forward an image that's going to attract the best talent and retain the best talent to stay with us. And so everything you do is about the environment you create. Your environment reflects you, and your environment like shapes you and makes you. And so we are part of that story, that environment that becomes your identity, right? As a business. And so when you think about what that actually looks like, you might imagine going through, let's say, a real estate development. I'll talk about one of our projects, the Perry Lane Hotel in Savannah, Georgia. That was a new build development. And when you walk into the property, you'll see all these different kinds of artwork. They're all from Savannah artists. A lot of them are from SCAD students. There's what we call styling, these interesting little objects displayed throughout the property, and all of them tell a narrative story about a fictional character whose name is Adelaide Harcourt, and she was, as the story goes, the 7th generation Savannan. She collected these objects, and she was friends with all of the artists in the community, collected their work, and now this is the display of her personal life's work of supporting artists. So she is the muse for that particular project, and the result is this depth to the story, the depth to the narrative, the depth to the project that brings value. So you can read, some of the more forward-thinking studies on this that are coming out, even in places like the Urban Land Institute. If you follow what they're doing, they just came out with a new report on creative placemaking that says art and creative placemaking are some of the best things that we can do to bring ROI to our real estate properties and to bring our communities out of this pandemic recession. So hugely important to drive our society forward.
Yeah, definitely. And Martha, I learned this firsthand. It's a group at a bank. We built a branch, complete de novo, in a developing area here in Memphis, and I was part of the project team, of course, because it rolled under my division, from the C-suite level. And of course, we had all the business pieces, right? There's all the contractor, all the the stuff, right? But when we get to like things like decor, I didn't really have the appreciation for what you just said, until I got that experience of learning, how that's curated, the importance of that atmosphere, right? And again, I'm around bankers, right? So creativity sometimes comes at a premium when you're in a very conservative industry, right? Where they think, oh, just stick a plant in the corner and let's go, right?
Yeah.
Or they buy a picture, just go online, spend $200, buy a picture, slap it on the wall. Hey, make sure it's level and then go on, right? And not really thinking through, that whole artistry, layout, and like you said, the impact on what that has when someone visits that branch, in this
Mhm.
example. And that's really tied to what you're saying. I got that firsthand, and I was a part of not only several meetings, but in several involved in conversations where we're talking about what you just mentioned, which is how we're tying the whole overall environment to what that means for our customers, right? And
Mhm.
is it inviting for our customers, and for our employees as well?
Yep.
They all go hand in hand. Is it a place for what our employees that are working there every day, right? What does that environment mean? What does each piece has an impact on something? It's not just slapping something on the wall because we like the colors, or it matches the carpet or something like that. It's deeper than that. And
Yes.
and so I love that, because I took that experience, and then I've been able to apply that even as you're thinking of any real estate, whether it's digital or physical, thinking about the ambiance, thinking about how you're working with local art, from and then the overall aspect that everybody in business cares about, ROI and bottom line revenue, blah 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 blah, right? But what's the impact? So it's not just doing it to doing it, but understanding the impact that it can have in a positive manner, on your business. I think is critical, and sometimes gets missed out, in that conservative business world. That sometimes creativity, unfortunately, can get stymied, in the pursuit of a dollar.
Yes, absolutely. In the state of the art report that we published last year, we found that uh, 75% of people surveyed in real estate said that the arts was critical to the success, like long term success of the design of the project, right? The feeling of the space. So you got to think about, sometimes you just have to think like a few steps down the road. What's it going to
Yeah.
feel like to be here? What are people going to say when they walk in the door? They're going to walk in the door and say, "Wow, I've never seen that before. That's cool. Tell me more." And you also have to think about what's your response going to be, right? What's the story that you tell? Because you could take, and it's we're not talking about always like huge sums of money, right? You can make a
Right.
big difference with just how you handle those dollars that are set aside for,
Hmm.
things like furniture, finishes, equipment, and styling and art. So, for example, you might have that $200 piece and you're like, I don't know, somebody found that and put it on the wall. Like
Right.
that's kind of like one thing. Or you
Right.
could be like, oh no, everything here is local artists, right? Everyone
Right.
here is a local artist to this community. And what you're doing is you're taking your your construction budget, you're taking your renovation budget and turning it into community value. You're turning it
Mm.
into economic distribution right where you are. And
Right.
that's really cool. Like, you know, yeah, an IKEA print, I'm not gonna like, slam on that, but that's going like that money's going to IKEA. But
Right.
think about if you took that $200 and gave that to someone who was working in that neighborhood,
Yes.
now that artist is gonna come bank with you. That's
Right.
what's going to happen. Like, you actually develop these community relationships that give you a long-term foundation in these places where you are.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about engaging. It's about engaging with that experience in the community, bringing value.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, it's connecting you to the community. And that was something that we did. It was a part of the vision for that particular project, was to work with local artists. And that came as a result of those conversations that we were all having and some of the ideas that were coming internally. And you're
Yeah.
exactly right. It's not just the PR piece of it that you get, that sort of thing, but it's really putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and really supporting local artists. And what we found is, you're exactly right. The end result was, not only were we able to endear ourselves as a company to earn business, but they become, more raging fans, so to speak, of the bank. And so then they're advocates for you, out in the community, telling other people about, not only here's my work, but here's this bank that supports local artists. And what you find is, when you support local artists, that kind of becomes a hub for, opportunities to support other, creatives or other industry, within your neighborhood, when you support the arts. And people come and they enjoy that. And so that's tremendous. And I think that's, business going forward, I think, should really take into account what you're saying, and that understanding, Martha, of how to curate, and how to ensure and look at, as we evolve. And we'll get to this question in a second, of during coronavirus, and then whatever the normal is post coronavirus, or once it kind of subsides, how developers and how businesses look at the environment, right? And it's not just about reducing space again to save money. It's, with the space that we have, that we utilize, how do we utilize it, and how do we ensure it's great for employees, it's great for customers and prospects, and it's great for the community.
Absolutely.
Yep, definitely. And so, let's get right into, COVID a little bit. So, yeah, you and I were joking a little bit
Mhm.
offline that,
That
if
little
you
thing.
yeah, little thing. Yeah, of course. Yeah, little thing that's gotten in the way in 2020, to say the least. You and I were talking, Martha, kind of offline about, if you and I had sat down and we were planning for 2020, and one of us said, you know what, I think there's going to be a worldwide virus pandemic, that's going to shut, a bunch of stuff down, and impact jobs, and impact, just the way of life that we all have. We probably would have laughed each other out of the room. And then you get to March, and here we are. So now we're about 6 months or so in, at this point, into utilizing new terms like quarantine and social distancing, and walking around with masks, and all those different things that, virtual schools, and everything that we're dealing with, right, Martha? What has been, kind of walk me through your business pre-COVID, right? How things were kind of moving along. And then once kind of COVID hit now, kind of compare and contrast those times for us. Yeah. And, kind of from your perspective.
Well, a year ago, it was all we could do to just handle the requests for work, for proposals.
Yeah.
We had shifted our business model. So I was interested. I was actually listening to the last episode, and your guest was talking about how he focused on, initially, when you start your company, you focused on prospecting, right? Because that's what you do when you have time.
Right.
And that's what we did when we started our business. We were out there generating leads by prospecting. You'd read an article in the paper, you knew that was a good prospect for you, you'd reach out. There was only so much time in the day, because it requires a significant amount of research and time investment to do that kind of work. We
Sure.
had shifted and hired, for the first time in our business, we hired a head of marketing and sales. And he came on board about, let's see, January 18, or sorry, January 19, January 19.
Okay.
So he had come in, and we started getting our marketing in place as a company for, broader lead generation. And so we were in this place of really just handling the influx of requests for proposals that were coming our way and just determining which clients were going to be the right for us. And if not, where to send them and getting proposals out the door and, just keeping, growing our team to support the demand. And now you can see our early indicator leads have definitely slowed down. And what's interesting for us is that our business slows down almost 6 months to the day after those big real economy hits, because we're generally associated, with capital economies. So those big projects are continuing on even after the real economy, faces an immediate impact. So we're just starting to kind of feel that slowdown in our sales right now. And the things that, if I had known that there was going to be a big global pandemic, we would not have expanded our leadership team and our management team, because I would have gone, oh my gosh, we can't invest in that expansion into our leadership team and our management team right now, because those are, those are like high up roles. Those are high executive level roles in a company. And I think I wouldn't have done that if we knew that a pandemic was coming, but we did, because we didn't know. And that was the best thing this business did, is we hired super experienced, specialized talent to run different departments of our business. And we had been working on that since 2018. We were looking for this highly specialized, highly experienced management team to help us manage our growth, because we were growing so quickly. So we hired that head of marketing and sales in 19. We hired a head of operations in December of 19, and we hired a head of finance and accounting in January 2020. And by the skin of our teeth, we got all the right people in place, because in hindsight, that was the best thing we could have done. Wow. Because that team has been able to guide us through this moment, because they've been through it, right? And they're bringing experience, specialized experience from other industries, and building our knowledge base within our own institution. So it's counterintuitive sometimes, that sometimes when you're not ready to, you have to make the push to invest in yourself. You have to make the push to invest in your business, because if you don't invest in yourself, it's never going to get to that next level. And I'm so grateful that we built out our executive team, and we kind of like just solidified all those positions and locked everyone into place and got things running just before the pandemic. And I don't know where we'd be without it, really.
And I love that. And a few things to unpack in what you said, Martha. It's that managing the emotion of fear as you go through that, because you made those investments and then this hits, right? And it hits everybody in the gut. Very few, of course, we may find out that there are some folks that knew this was coming. But aside from that, people didn't know this was coming. And so, but you had made these investments, which were, like you say, equity injections into the company, but they come at a cost, right? And so doing that into your business, and like you say, making great hires, which MYB community, you've heard that on several episodes. It's uber critical that you evaluate talent and make good hires. At all levels in your organization, but certainly at the leadership level. And so, Martha, when you say that, and you've got people that, like say, come from different industries, they bring this wealth of experience, but then now you have what almost could be the ultimate test, right? Worldwide pandemic and the impact, geopolitical and kind of globally to the marketplace. That is not necessarily anybody's fault, right? It's not like in 08 or 09 where, bankers and the government were large contributors to that, right? You had an industry that contributed. This is more, this is man versus virus. So it's not necessarily, pointing the fingers at who's really at fault per se, but it's just an impact. And, for you to express the benefit that you have of doing that, even at a time where you might could look at that, and many would look at that and say, yeah, that was tough to, to add on that salary and, all that type of thing to our business. But then, like you say, you're primed. And it goes back to what you went through in 08 and 09, that creativity, that ability to pivot, that ability to take, calculated risk. And MYB, for you to get your business to the next level, you're going to have to take some risks that are going to be uncomfortable, right? It's going to be hard to grow and be comfortable at the same time. That's extremely rare. That's extremely, almost doesn't happen. To get to the next level requires some discomfort. No different than if you go to college, that's not the most comfortable thing, and get your degree so that you can, hopefully get, what you think would be a higher paying, position. That still took some risk, right? You took the risk, obviously, with student lending. You took the risk with your time. The 4 years you spent in school, you could have ran a business. And so that's, you've got the opportunity cost there. So everything, requires that risk. And what Martha's describing is tremendous, that her and her team had the foresight, even when it's somewhat uncomfortable, bringing in great people that now have you positioned that as this starts to subside, and it will, man versus virus has been going on since the beginning of time, right? And it'll continue. We've had the other flu, which is a COVID. The normal flu that we're all accustomed to has been around since the beginning of time. We got a handle on it. This one, we'll get a handle on it at some point. And then life will move on to whatever the reality is at that time. But, the way you describe that with that energy, I could see the passion, the way you describe that, and how you can see the benefit in working with that team.
Oh, yeah. And what that has done. So pre-COVID, we were responding to our own growth. Like we were just growing so quickly that it was all we could do to try and respond and navigate. So it was more of a responsive method. And we took some time in 18 to plan ahead and say, all right, we've got to build out our management team in order to sustain this company, and build out that executive team. And now that executive team is built out, now we're looking at it and going, investing in yourself and investing in your business is about the best thing you could actually do. So we are doubling down on that concept. We're writing our plans for 2021. We've got a 3 scenario plan. So, we measure it every quarter, and we're on, we run on the mid scenario, and then we're ready to accelerate or decelerate as transitions and news happens, and as things come out that can affect our business. But we're also using this moment to make strategic hires, to build tech infrastructure that we needed, that's going to last us the next 10 years. So we're taking this moment to hire, retain our talent, build our knowledge base, build our tech infrastructure, and diversify our marketplaces so that when we come out, we're actually ready to run roaring. The last recession, when we came out of that last recession, it took us like 18 months to catch up to the growth that was out there. And I can tell you what's different is this time we're going to be ready. So the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize about a recession, and I have to say, I know this is a weird thing to say, but I kind of love a good recession because it makes you focus and prioritize everything. You can get really distracted when you're growing so fast, but a recession makes you focus.
It does.
And if you do it right, you're going to be ahead of everyone else on the upside. Because if you're ready for the upside, I can tell you, you're going to be like one of the only people that's ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes, and the market always resets itself just naturally. And then you have, obviously things that can affect it, whether it's, real estate bubbles bursting, in 08, 07, 08, 09, or you have, virus pandemics and things like that can come in and impact it. But you're exactly right. And I've had this conversation with some other guests in past episodes, Martha, where, what a couple things the recession does. What it tends to do is it tends to weed out pretenders, right? Folks that get in that really don't even have the best intentions, or they don't really take it seriously and really structure themselves. So it tends to weed out the pretenders, and it creates opportunity for those again that have that type of vision. And obviously it can have kind of vast impacts on other things and other markets. But for those that have the right perspective, right, and they can look at it, not so much for all its negatives, right. So not just sitting there watching the news and waiting for each domino to fall and kind of listening to talking heads, but sitting down with their true team and with their mentors and saying, where are there opportunities, right? And how can we continue to grow to best position ourselves for once this pass, because it always pass, right? I mean, just the history of mankind to the beginning of time. Again, things happen, mankind rises to the occasion, right? Today is a little different because we have so much more information, right? We have 24/7 news cycles, and we've got the internet and things like that. And now everybody's a reporter, everybody's a talking head, right? That used to be a limited population. Now everybody with a Twitter egg, profile can get on and speak to the entire world, right? And so that makes it a little different and a little bit noisier. But again, you're right. A good recession, tends to weed out, kind of the jokers out of the deck, so to speak, and now allows kind of the real players, to progress. Let me ask you, Martha, because folks listening to this and they hear this and they're following along, but for those that have struggled, maybe they don't, they've run into cash issues. Maybe they aren't where they like to be, but they have a really good idea and they're in business. What would you recommend to those folks that, like say, maybe struggling? They've lost their job and that was their seed money for their business, and they're having to kind of start over, there. What would you say to those folks, and what would you recommend, for them to position themselves to be able to then leverage opportunities, in this environment?
Yes. Well, I think that there are a couple things. So if you are really just trying to form your idea and put your plan together, there's no better time than now than to learn. So if you can invest in your own education right now, it's an incredible time to do so because there are so many resources available that are free or no cost. When we started 9.arts, I checked out 8 business books from the library and I read nonprofit business books because I came from art school. So I went to, and I read, I read nonfiction, nonprofit. I read nonfiction business books for a year and learned how to write a business plan, learned how to write a P&L. And, our first year coming out of the recession, because we had put these plans into place just by educating ourselves. And that plan we put into place, our first year post recession, 2010, we were a $600,000 business. And then fast forward, 7 years and we're a $6 million business after that recession. So, it was all about preparation and using that time that we had to learn what we were going to do and build our plans for what happens next. And the thing that we did when we built out our business plans, I mean, look, if you don't have any capital, the way you build a business is you build a business on services and you convince people to pay you before you do the thing.
Yes.
And so, if you're bootstrapping, which maybe a lot of you are, and like we were, to bootstrap, we were putting together, it was all sweat equity. We were putting in our time. We put together our marketing materials, and then we were out meeting with clients, meeting with prospects, and putting our proposals out there. And the key for those proposals is that we had to bring value to the table for our clients, and then put together terms into place where we could get deposits before we began our work. So that's how we managed our cash flow. And so it's all about figuring out how to run your business so that you can make a sale to bring you cash and then do the work. That's how you do it when you bootstrap. You
Yeah,
got to convince
exactly.
people to give you money because you don't have any.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
how it starts.
Yeah, you have to be compelling, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think, and part of what you're saying with that is just so true. Just to add on, Martha, is working within the right target audience. One of the things that always burns me sometimes with people is they want to be either everything to everybody, or they fish in a pond that they know personally. So, for instance, you take things like Facebook. They'll try to build their business solely off Facebook and Facebook inboxes, right? From
Mm.
people they may know personally off of social media, or they may have met through social media and they only really know through social media. And that's one that's so limiting, but oftentimes people do that, and they're in businesses that then who they're connected to online, it wouldn't is not their target audience. And so they get frustrated even when they're trying to do that, because it's hard for them to be compelling, to get people to pay you, like say upfront prior to a service or a product being delivered, if that individual is not really your target audience to begin with, right?
Right.
And
That's
so,
so true. Yes,
yeah,
you have to know your audience. And in fact, that's something that I learned at a really young age. Uh, I used to give I was in a public speaking course when I was in high school and did competitive
yeah,
public speaking. And the thing that my teacher taught me, the thing Miss Marsh taught me that has stayed with me for life is you have to present yourself well and know who you're talking to,
yes,
know your audience, know your buyer. What do they want? Don't sell them what you want. Sell them
right,
what they want. Sell them what they don't even know they want because
yeah,
they need it, right? You have to figure out your buyer's pain points and
yeah,
anticipate their challenges before they even know them. And
yeah,
so I think it's so critical to start your business that way. And the one way you can do that, like figuring out who your buyer is and what value they bring, the first 3 deals you make, ask those 3 people, "Hey, why'd you hire us?
yeah.
What value did we bring to you?
Hmm.
What about this is working?" And they will tell you. The first the first
That's the
3
will.
clients that we started out with 3 contracts, and those 3 contracts, we went back to them and said, "Hey, what kind of value are we bringing to the table? Why'd you guys decide to hire us? What about this worked well? Where could we improve?" And across the board, they all said, "Oh, we love this process because the art tells our story. It tells our brand story." And that was really important to us. And so we went, "Okay, that's now our tagline." And then we started, following other clients like that. So knowing your audience is going to bring you success. And without it
Yeah,
is,
without it, yeah, you just don't. Yeah, I
there's
mean, you're
nothing.
just going to be spent. You'll be a gerbil on a wheel, right?
Yes.
You'll be moving, but you just won't be going anywhere.
Yes.
Martha Weidmann is our guest today, CEO and founder of Nine Dot Arts. Martha, what do you see next for the company? You talked about growth. You talked about what you're currently working through, kind of through COVID and kind of building your team up and being primed for growth by putting the right people in the right roles there with your company. As we get through things, right? Where do you see your organization going? What would you say is your, kind of, somewhat short-term vision? I know, things are a little cloudy, obviously, with the current environment. There's a lot that's unpredictable and unprecedented, but where do you see the company, as we go through things?
Yes. So we are growing in 3 areas. So our 3-prong growth strategy is to diversify our regions, diversify the service offering that we provide to our clientele. So we'll expand those services and diversify the type of clients that we have. So we have clients, for example, that are in everything from, government to commercial real estate to hospitality. So we'll continue to measure and track to make sure that our clientele is always diversified so that you're never hit by one industry too hard. Diversify the services that we offer them. So there might be consulting, curating, but also styling, assessing or appraising existing inventory that they have, and then diversifying our regions. So right now, about 60% of our business is in Denver, but in our sales proposals, we are 70% on the West Coast. So
Yeah.
I would say next year, our plan is to have a physical presence on the West Coast. So
Sure.
we're aiming for Seattle. We like that marketplace a lot.
Love it.
Um,
Been there. Lived there for a little
and
bit.
oh, you did? As
Yes.
we love that. We love that town because they're really business friendly. They're like open to new companies.
Yes.
Um, and there's a lot of California exodus into
There
that
is.
particular area.
Yep, there
So
is.
we follow a lot of times we look at just general cycles and indicators in a few different ways. I pull reports from IBIS World because I like their forecasting for the next 5 years. So we look for diversifying our regions based on population growth and commercial construction growth. And those two target places for us are the West Coast and the Southeast. So
Mhm.
our goal in the next few years is an office space in Seattle, and then one probably in the Atlanta area that can serve the markets like Charlotte, Nashville, Atlanta,
Sure.
and that general growth that we're seeing in the Southeast.
Yep, definitely. No, that's tremendous, and you'll definitely look forward to as you guys continue to progress as you look at those geographies and continue to move your business kind of down the field, so to speak. Okay, Martha, it's time for a fun question for you. I like to ask my guests this, and always looking forward to your answer here. I bring you $100 million cash, no strings attached. Everything's taken care of. The IRS is good. I bring you 100 million in cash. What do you do with that money and why?
So if I had $100 million, all the taxes were paid off, I would focus that effort on developing sustainable floating housing, sustainable floating infrastructure. And the reason for that, I have a particular love for this subject because my mom's from Pascagoula, Mississippi. My dad's from Mobile, Alabama. And if
Yeah.
you've been watching the news, you may have noticed one of the islands that I used to go to in the summertime, Dauphin Island, is underwater right now.
You used to go to Dolphin Island.
Yes.
Oh, quick story. You won't believe this. I went twice as a kid. I was on survey teams. So I was in Birmingham, Alabama at a school there, and we would drive. And I went twice. I volunteered twice. I got a chance to go. Spent 2 weeks each time. This is back, you and I are close to about the same age. So this was 94, somewhere in there. Um, eighth grade science class, and 94 into 95. So it's eighth grade.
You go to
We
see
drive
that?
down, we spend time in Dolphin Island. I love Dolphin Island. We stayed there. One of the teacher's friends did this big crab boil and all the seafood stuff. I still remember it to this day. But I've always thought what happened with that, because we did, I mean, and that information like really went to scientists down there. So like we did like some real stuff. And I actually had to go out a little bit. I had to wear these boots and a suit, and I had to go out and actually conduct the survey. And so, no, I love that you said that, because, that's just tremendous. And, my wife's mom, she's from Mobile, and in that area, and got family there. So, yeah, but love
Well,
Dolphin Island.
I am just like so happy that you love Dauphin Island. That is such a special place. And, if you look at our population in the United States, there's so many of us that are living in coastal cities.
Sure.
And as sea levels rise, and you can see it, like I've actually watched the island move over my lifetime. That island has shifted, right? And it's
Yeah,
flooded multiple times.
absolutely.
So I think that the thing that we have to invest in as a society is our future. And
Yes,
one thing that we have to figure out is how we are going to provide sustainable housing, affordable, sustainable housing for our waterfront populations. And
sure.
I think that's really important to me. And I want to see the people of Mobile, be able to thrive into the future, because we can't have our houses going underwater every 3 years. we can't keep building the houses the same way. Let's build our house a new way. So when that ocean level rises, your house just rises with it. That's what I want to figure out. How can a rising tide literally float our houseboat?
Yep, there you go. Absolutely. And so you definitely would be able to get involved in that pretty heavy with that amount of cash.
100 million. You can get engineers, scientists, architects, artists. And the first thing that I would do is hire the world's best head of operations to make that idea a reality.
There you go. I love it. I love it. So you always forward thinking. You got the plan already set, just that quick. This has been a tremendous dialogue, Martha, just to say the least. As we kind of wrap up, what are just one or two, best practices that work for you that you think will work for those listening, who come from, all various walks of life and are enduring many different things, positive and maybe more obstacles that they have to overcome. But, what are just one or two best practices from you that really work for you that you think will work for others?
So I feel like one key turning point in my career was that moment of reflection and asking myself, what is it that I can do? What is it that we can do as a company where we will bring the most value to the world? What is the one thing that we can be the best at in the world? What's that one thing? What are we the best at? What are we better than anyone else? This is what we really know. And then spend all of your effort building that company, because that's what we knew how to do, right? That's what a bootstrap org does. What are you the best at? And then build your business towards it.
Yeah.
And then secondly is invest in yourself. Have confidence in yourself, invest in yourself, teach yourself, and then you'll have the tools that you need to succeed for the long term. And you can't stop. It's lifelong learning. You're investing yourself every single year.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great way, Martha, to end this and kind of sum up everything that we've been talking about for yourself and for our audience is to to invest in yourself and what that means. What that truly means is spending time, feeding yourself positivity, positive messages, being around positive people, being willing to tackle obstacles head on with a, glass half full, mentality and doing that and being able to progress forward. It's just so critical. And I think that's a great critical message that we all need to hear at this time. So Martha Weidmann, here, our guest, CEO and co-founder of 9.arts. That's 9.arts.com. It's in the show notes, folks. Make sure you go there as soon as you get done listening. Check it out. If you happen to be in one of the markets that Martha mentioned, whether you're in Denver or if you happen to be on the West Coast or you happen to be in Seattle, welcome them with open arms as they look to come to your market. If you happen to be in the Southeast, you're in the Atlanta area, down there, look for the company to come down there. Send them a nice positive message and let Martha know you heard her right here on episode 199 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Martha, any thoughts of podcasting for you? I think you do good. It'd be really good for your business. So,
I would love to have a podcast where 7 to 9-year-olds come and critique artwork. I found that kids are the best art critics I've ever met. So that's my retirement.
There you go. So no, that'd be tremendous. Make a great podcast content and YouTube content, to say the least. So that'd be tremendous. So Martha Weidmann, listen, I can't thank you enough. Definitely best wishes to you and your family as you continue to grow and progress your business and help us all just be a little bit better. So thank you for taking time and
thank you, Ron.
You're very welcome and look forward to remaining connected and definitely want to be, a resource going forward. So, but thank you so much.
Appreciate you. I appreciate everything you're doing. And I can't wait to rock that t-shirt for the Minding Your Business podcast here in Denver.
Yep, absolutely. That is going to be heading your way. So just watch for that email. But thank you so much again, Martha. I really appreciate it.
All right. Y'all take care.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So that was Martha Weidmann, CEO and co-founder of Arts. That's arts.com. Just a great spirit. Someone that obviously, around my age, 80s babies, of course. And, you can learn a lot from people like that. You can learn a lot from people that are out in different parts of the world, who are doing business and come from humble beginnings and just want to see things be just a little bit better. So definitely connect with her, and in the show notes, arts.com. You can connect with me. Continue to do so, MYB. I appreciate all the feedback that I'm getting. champronbrooks.com. That's champronbrooks.com. Make sure you do that. Something I need to mention as we gear up and we're getting closer to the end of September. September 30th is International Podcast Day. Okay, International Podcast Day. And something we have coming up, we're going to have a special swap pod, Memphis swap pod, that's going to be taking place on International Podcast Day, September the 30th. This is going to be a tremendous effort. Paris Sharkey is going to be part of this with Let's Be Real, the Let's Be Real podcast. Just a great brother, and he and his team have a tremendous podcast. Make sure you subscribe to it as part of the Binge Podcast Network. Dominic Lawson, who many of you know from me sharing over many episodes, just shouting him out, and who we refer to as the Podfather, one of the great inspirations for me in getting into podcasting. And that's no cap. That's the real story. Someone that really inspired me into it and continues to do so is going to be part of it with the Startup Life podcast. Verbally Effective with Ina Esco, herself and Sinai with the Verbally Effective podcast. Make sure that's another one to check out. Ina and Sinai have been, tremendous in the Memphis community on many different fronts and in media and presenting and amplifying voices here in the Memphis community. And this includes then myself here with the Minding Your Business podcast. So we're coming together. We're united. We're Voltron, Justice League, the Avengers, however you want to put us. We're doing a Memphis swap pod where we're going to discuss a few different subjects as it relates to podcasting for all of us individually and then all of us collectively, and how we're going to move forward in the podcast industry, and then also how we're going to help edify and grow the podcast community right here in Memphis, Tennessee, where we all are. And there are many creators, there's much talent around, and we just have to identify that talent and help them to be able to amplify their voices as the podcasting industry continues to grow. You see what companies are doing, right? You see what Apple's doing, you see what Spotify's doing, you see what iHeartRadio is doing. They're making significant investments in the podcasting. Even when they've got TV and radio over there, they're making significant investments in podcasting. They don't do that just because they have nothing better to do. Okay. So they're doing that for a reason, because they see value. One of the things you find is that people with a lot of money typically do things because they see value in it. There's no dummies once you get into the M level. And it's not all about money, right? It's about the value that you put out and that sort of thing, and how you connect with people. And so people see the impact and that value in podcasting, and that's continuing to grow. So check us out. There'll be information in the show notes for you to be able to join, but I want to start sharing that as we get closer to International Podcast Day on September the 30th, where podcasting will be celebrated. You'll see a lot of different efforts, but connect with us and the podcasters that are here in Memphis, Tennessee. It's a great market, great city that podcasting is growing in, and we want you to be a part of that. So check that out in the show notes. Don't forget Leverage at leveragecalc.com. Great team there, John Matheson and the entire team with Leverage. That's financial software that'll help you build your business, whether it's your real estate business and or your just business overall. So whether you're in real estate or just in business overall, having a great conversation with your banker is critical, right? And knowing that you're approved prior to having that conversation is even more critical. It'll save you a lot of time and help you to be able to get right to business and not spend so much time going back and forth with your banker to try to get approvals for the financing that you need to purchase assets to then grow your business, which is the reason you should be borrowing money. Okay, don't just borrow money just to have it or just to solely have debt. You borrow money to purchase something that then produces income. Okay, and this will help you do that. It's a great cloud-based software. So go to leveragecalc.com. And you can also go and find the link at chaperonbrooks.com. Listen, I'm going to get out of here. Continue to do what you do in all positivity. And remember, we all want to be great for ourselves. We want to be great for our families, and we want to be great for our communities. Chaperon, the Minding Your Business podcast. This was episode 199. I'm going to be coming back with episode 200. And listen, y'all that were there for episode 100, y'all thought that was lit. Wait till you see episode number 200. No cap. I'm out. Be great.